Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the joint event of the British Czech and Slovak Association and the Dvořák Society UK. With this event, we want to celebrate the 2024 Year of the Czech Music, as well as the 50th anniversary of the establishment of the Dvořák Society in the UK. British Czech and Slovak Association was launched in the presence of Alexander Dubček in November 1990, and our aim is to promote awareness and ongoing dialogue between Britain, the Czech and Slovak republics and its people. We organize monthly events in the areas of history, literature, science, and of course arts, and as well as social get-together. We also publish a bi-monthly magazine, British Czech and Slovak Review, with in-depth articles, reviews, overview of events in the Czech and Slovak republics and their relations with Britain. We always welcome not just new readers, but also contributors. And if you do like writing, you can also join our annual writing competition with a prize of £400 for winners and £100 for a runner-up. The topic this year is Discovering a New Country, inspired by the 100th year anniversary of publication of Karel Čapek's Letters from England, Anglické listy. And by the way, you do not have to be a member of BCSA in order to enter. But of course, seeing what we do, I am sure that those of you who are not already members would now like to become ones. And you can see our amazing membership secretary, Růžena, who is somewhere around. Now you can find her. Please note that all proceeds from this event will go to the BCSA School Support Fund, which was established in 2004 to provide funds to schools in Czech and Slovak republics. Now, before I introduce our speakers, I would like to hand over to David Roberts to welcome you here on behalf of the Dvořák Society UK.
Thank you. Dobrý večer. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce this evening's event for a number of reasons. As Jan has said, in 2024 we are celebrating the Year of Czech Music. And only last week in this very venue there was a discussion with distinguished panellists to mark the 200th anniversary of Smetana's birth, and tonight's event is a continuation of the celebration. Moreover, this month marks the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Dvořák Society. And over the course of the year, we will be holding different events, including a feast of Czech music, both old and new, at the Leamington Music Festival in early May. But what better way of launching our celebrations than tonight's event, featuring the Dvořák Society's current president, the distinguished conductor Jakub Hrůša, in conversation with Society member Nigel Simeone. Jakub is also the president of the International Martinu Circle, of which some of us are also members. In fact, conductors feature strongly in the Society's past history, with the much-missed Jiří Bělohlavek being Jakub's immediate predecessor. Another Czech conductor, Tomáš Netopil, is the honorary president of our Link organization in Prague. Regarding the Dvořák Society's activities, various newsletters are at the back, and there's also a leaflet here. And we have extensive activities, both charitable and producing a newsletter, as you will see, and a journal and occasional publications. And this year, we will be producing an occasional publication written by David Beveridge on Dvořák in England. As our name perhaps suggests, we are Dvořák Society, but it is for Czech and Slovak music, so I must emphasize that. And you've got some composers there, and it's not just 4 great Czech composers, but we also have new Czech composers, and some of these will feature in the Leamington Festival. We commissioned a piece from Sylvia Bodorova, which will be performed by the Martinu String Quartet and the oboist Willem Verwerker. I look forward with interest to hearing tonight's conversation and learning more of the exciting but exacting life of a conductor much in demand. Without any more ado, I'd like to hand back to you, please.
Well, thank you very much, David. Now, so when we were thinking about how to celebrate 2024 Year of Czech Music, we thought, well, how better to celebrate it than with its ambassador, Jakub Hrůša, and also the a prolific writer and musicologist Nigel Simeone. Now, I am sure that you all know, but just in case, I will tell you all, well, obviously, clearly not all of it, but some of the information about both of them. Jakub was born in the Czech Republic. He is the chief conductor of the Bamberg Symphony Music Director Designate of the Royal Opera Covent Garden, music director from 2025. He's a principal guest conductor of the Czech Philharmonic, a principal guest conductor of the Orchestra della Accademia Nazionale di Santa Cecilia. He was previously a principal guest conductor of the Philharmonia Orchestra and of Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra, and he is the 2023 Opus Classic Conductor of the Year. Jakub Hrůša is frequent guest with many of the world's greatest orchestras, enjoying close relationship and performing regularly with Vienna Philharmonic, Berlin Philharmonic, Bavarian Radio Symphony, Munich Philharmonic, Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra, Stadtkapelle Dresden, Tonhalle Orchestra Zurich, it's just testing my knowledge, Lucerne Festival Orchestra, Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, Orchestra de Paris, Orchestra Philharmonique de Radio France, NHK Symphony and the Mahler Chamber Orchestra. And in the US, the Cleveland Orchestra, New York Philharmonic, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and Boston Symphony Orchestra. And as I mentioned, I know. That's for me. I don't think it's for you. So, and as I said, Jakub is one of the ambassadors of 2024 Year of Czech Music and also patron of Smetana 200 project and is due to perform Smetana's opera Libuše with the Czech Philharmonic at the Prague Spring and the Smetana Litomyšl festivals. Now, Nigel Simeone was born in London. He's a writer and broadcaster with a lifelong interest in Czech music, an enthusiasm ignited by seeing a production of The Cunning Little Vixen during a school trip to Germany in 1970. He is the author of 3 books on Janáček, including Janáček's works in 1997 and the Janáček Compendium in 2019. His other books include 3 with focus on the relationship between composers and conductors, the Leonard Bernstein letters, Charles Mackerras, and Ralph Vaughan Williams and Adrian Bolt. He appears regularly on the BBC 3, Record Review and Opera on 3, and contributes articles to Opera and Gramophone, most recently a feature on Smetana in the March 2024 issue. He also writes program notes for the Salzburg Festival, Wexford Festival, Royal Opera House, London Symphony Orchestra, and the Wigmore Hall. So without further ado, I'll hand over to our amazing guests who will talk about Czech music, their musical beginnings, their life experiences in various countries and role of classical and Czech music in contemporary society, and much more, we hope.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear okay? Yes? And is everything working out in the metaverse or whatever it is? Yes. Very good evening. Thank you very much for coming. I'll just briefly explain what we're going to do. We're going to chat with each other for about an hour, and then there'll be some time for questions, discussions, whatever from you, and then we all pile outside for a much needed refreshment. So that's the plan. Do enjoy it, and thank you very much for coming. Jakub, it's lovely to see you. Why don't we begin at the beginning? As I said in my little note to Jana, my discovery of Janáček was really kicked off by seeing The Vixen when I was 14, which was a very happy accident because it was supposed to be a trip to Germany and we were supposed to be learning about things German, and we were meant to be going to the docks at Essen that day. And I decided that I'd rather go and see this thing I'd never heard of called Das Schlaue Füchslein at Deutsche Oper am Rhein in Düsseldorf. So I did, and it blew me away. And really literally changed my life, because here we are, more than half a century later, and I'm still completely head over heels in love with the music of Janáček, as well as being deeply fascinated by it. What about your musical discoveries when you were young? What came first? What were the great moments for you?
Good evening. Also from me, thank you very much for coming and listening to us talking. Nigel, it's rather difficult for me to trace what came first, what came second, etc. Because despite the fact that my family is not professionally musical, I felt surrounded by music all the time. I discovered Janáček as an opera composer live relatively late. Oh. Maybe as late as being 14.
Ah.
But I remember discovering Janáček on records quite early, and not just records such as CDs, which in fact, as I was a child, still didn't exist in my world. I mean, they existed, but not in Czechoslovakia. They came later. So gramophone records, and I remember we had many records of normal type, which people used to hear back then, but we also had some kind of old types of records which didn't work on the normal gramophone player.
Yeah.
They were older, and in the loft, or simply the highest part of the apartment where we lived, there was also an item which I for a long time hadn't known what was it for, and it was obviously an old gramophone record player which no one in the family used anymore. So it was literally disposed there. Maybe it didn't look so bad, so it was a piece of furniture. And I discovered that I must have been very young, like maybe 9 or 10 years old. And next to this item, there were old gramophone records and the gramophone player. And I tried my best to make it work.
Of course, yes.
And I just took one of those records which were there and just put it on top, and I didn't know what it was. And it was Glagolitic Mass by Janáček. And I tell you something, although I didn't know much about music in terms of expertise, for me, I played instruments, I listened to music as everyone happens to listen. But I started playing, and it was that kind of old record which had very little music on one side.
Yes.
It must have
The 78 RPM
yeah,
ones.
thank you.
Yeah.
And so I put there, and I think it was postludium, the organ solo, and the last intrada, which is the most extravagant part of it. And now it started playing, and it was a combination of totally incomprehensible but extremely exciting music. Like, I thought it was the craziest thing I've heard in my life, including all kind of rock, pop, folk, whatever. It had such an incredible drive. Actually, until this day, I think Janáček was one of the first composers, in fact, who brought in music sounds which we identify with, say, rock music, that kind of a beat, repeated pattern which goes with incredible drive forward. I think at his time, no one else was doing it pretty much, this incredible, almost primordial force.
It's the mixture of primordial and kind of the machine age as well.
Exactly.
Isn't it? So it's this strange combination of very new and very visceral. Yeah.
So I was blown away by this recording, and I played it, I remember, 10 times all around, because I thought, what the hell is this? And I thought, it must, if the composer's other works are like that, I have to discover them all. So in a way, I think everyone with open heart and curiosity being exposed for the first time to Janáček, I think has a similar experience. On top of that, the record machine didn't really work well. So I think a bit of, so it was like with that kind of thing, which added a mystery to it, you know.
Gave it character, shall we say.
Yeah, exactly.